Chapter 32. The Recorded Battle. The sun loomed over the forest slightly, spreading pink and orange light as it rose higher every few minutes. The sunrise was beautiful and cast a shadow over the trees, turning them black against the colorful sky. The stars were still shining dimly, and the moon was moving back under the earth for its daily slumber. It was a peaceful, new morning for the most part, and the soft chirping of birds announced the day's return. However, loud footsteps and grass being launched in the air disturbed the calmness. The mechanical laughter was unmistakable and full of joy as the Sentiron robots finished their last game. Lockjaw had never had so much fun in his short life. He laughed and held Razorwing in a headlock. The red robot struggled against Lockjaw's strength, but he was also laughing uncontrollably. The two of them had broken out into a fight after a rather physical steal of the ball. However, it was more of a joking, petty revenge, and everyone knew that it wasn't serious. Saberclaw threw her head back and laughed at the two. Her arms jerked up and down as her shoulders moved with her laughs. She didn't care about her posture right now and knew that no one else did either. She was having a lot of fun and was enjoying every moment of this ending night. Razorwing violently tapped Lockjaw's upper arm as he chuckled. Okay. You can let me go now. He pulled his head backwards. Lockjaw loosened his grip and let Razorwing stand upright again. The two of them laughed at each other for a minute, but were interrupted by Saberclaw. Hey, the sun's up. Wait, what time is it? She asked. Lockjaw glanced at the sunrise and also realized the clear daylight coming from it. He looked back at Saberclaw and shrugged, but Silverspot squinted at the sun. Actually, I think it is about 6 in the morning. You two should get ready for school. She pointed her finger at Lockjaw and Saberclaw. They looked at each other because Silverspot's words sounded unusual coming from her. Silverspot's face fell in confusion a little because she realized that she sounded like a human mother. She shrugged it off and waved her hand. Well, go on then. The two robots shrugged and began walking towards the hangar. Razorwing calmed down and looked at Silverspot, smiling. What are we going to do today? He asked. Silverspot began walking towards the hangar as well and passed Razorwing on the way. She was calm now, and her voice was monotone again. You can come on patrol with me, and then I will be experimenting with the synthetic G for a while. I am sure you can figure something out from there. She continued walking as he followed her. Her wings were tucked neatly on her back, and she walked with a sense of leadership and care, as if each step was carefully calculated. Razorwing followed her like a lost puppy, patiently waiting for her to do something because he was a little bored. Silverspot entered the base just before Razorwing did and saw Callum and Alea standing beside Lila. As Razorwing passed them, he asked, Alea, where's the chain I gave you? He looked at her neck, not seeing the chain anywhere. His footsteps were a lot louder than Alea was used to, and he was also many times her size. He scared her a little, but she quickly composed herself. As you probably knew, the chain does not shrink with the rest of my body when I become human, so I had to take it off due to its size. It's in my backpack, and it definitely weighs a lot more than a school book. However, I'm not a normal human, so I can carry it. No one will notice. I hope. Her explanation made sense to Razorwing, so he gave her a thumbs up and then continued following Silverspot as she entered the hallway. Alea smiled and waved to him, saying goodbye. His loud, clanking footsteps eventually faded out, and she exhaled heavily. Is that what it's like for you when you're near us? She asked Lila. The girl tilted her head and asked, What? She seemed confused. Saberclaw gestured towards where Razorwing had gone. Razorwing kind of scared me due to his size and how loud he was. Lila gasped with realization and laughed a little. At first, it was a little frightening when a loud, large metal being quickly approached her. However, over time, she got used to it, and now she treated it like the sound of a kind guardian's arrival. Now that Lila thought of it, that was exactly what the Sentiron footsteps were. Lila answered while gesturing, I guess for a newbie, it is. You get used to it, though. She thought about the details of a Sentiron that she had previously just accepted. The name Sentiron actually sounded a little frightening, but the robots, in reality, were extremely kind and can be large, metal softies if you're not a threat. However, if you were a threat, the Sentiron name should be a scary name. Lila had seen Saberclaw and the others fight, and it was a ruthless thing. They didn't kill unless they had to, but they always finish off their enemies. Saberclaw herself could be rather cold when it came to finishing the job in battles. However, Lila had asked Saberclaw about this, and the robot had actually explained that taking life was a complicated thing, and she was actually rather pitiful towards her victims. But it was necessary, and an emotionless demeanor was a rather helpful way to cope with taking someone's life. Lila looked down at the expensive watch on her wrist. It said a rather shocking time. Lila's eyes widened, and she clutched her backpack straps. "If we don't leave soon, we'll be late for homeroom," she exclaimed and spun on her heels, speedily walking out of the hangar. Callum, who had been silent as he listened to the others and managed his own thoughts, grabbed Alea's hand. He gently pulled her behind him as he followed Lila. About 30 minutes passed as the three humans made their way to Grove Academy. The school was rather close, so they just walked to school instead of wasting money on gas. Sometimes, if Lila was feeling lazy, she would just ride her bike to school. However, Callum and Alea didn't have bikes, so that wouldn't have worked nowadays. They walked on a sidewalk, and Alea observed the concrete below her. Her green sneakers tapped with every step on the pebbled, hard surface. Large cracks separated chunks of sidewalk, and Alea remembered Lila's past joke. "Don't step on the cracks, or you'll break your mother's back." Alea thought of this children's tale as silly and pathetic. It was impossible for one to break their mother's back by stepping in a certain area of sidewalk. Even if this superstition was true, it wouldn't exactly apply to Callum and Alea. Ironically, Alea and Callum didn't have a mother, so they would be safe from that consequence anyway. This thought made Alea smile, and Callum noticed. "What's so funny?" he asked, his voice sounding unusual, but still handsome without the slight, mechanical tune of his robot form. Alea looked up at Callum's interested expression and observed him closely for a few split seconds before she answered. His bright blue eyes seemed to glow unnaturally, and his hair was pitch black along with his bushy eyebrows. He had never washed this hair, but it sat perfectly upon his head. Even though it was messy, it looked effortlessly attractive. She caught herself staring longingly at him as he chuckled. "Are you enjoying the view, Alea?" he asked with his bright white smile. She shyly looked back at the concrete and sped up her walk. He continued beside her, and his grin seemed to light up the situation. He gently brushed the brown, straight hair behind Alea's ear and leaned down to see her hidden face. She was blushing intensely, but Callum just sighed in awe by how cute she looked. Alea's green eyes radiated her nervousness and seemed to instantly infiltrate Lockjaw's emotional walls. Her soft, feminine face comforted him and gave him a fuzzy, pleasant feeling as he ran his fingers through her silky hair. She was perfect in his eyes, but this lovely moment was interrupted by Lila's disgusted tone. She had turned around and said, You two act like you're in a romance movie." She wrinkled her nose as Alea's blushing continued, and Callum laughed. Alea opened her mouth and was about to make a snide remark, but was interrupted by a loud crashing sound from her right. Callum was on her right side and instantly pulled her behind him as he faced the woods in the direction of the sound. Lila gasped with fright and gazed fearfully into the woods. After a few seconds, Lila let out a sigh of relief. That was crazy. We all flinched so hard because of a deer or something." She turned forward and was about to continue walking. The school was just ahead of them, and Lila was sure that they were already late. Lila heard the crashing sound again and whipped around, arms out as she readied herself to run. Callum seemed determined and on high alert as one hand held Alea behind him and the other held out before her, ready to protect her. Alea spoke with caution. "What was that?" she asked. Callum's eyebrows furrowed, and he glared into the woods. "I think I know Dash." He was cut off by the sound of a whizzing projectile. In milliseconds, a bright purple ball of light and energy was launched inches from Callum's head. He felt the heat from it and jerked Alea away from the projectile. The ball missed them and hit a tree on the other side of the small street, exploding and disintegrating the tree into a pile of black ash. The impact shook the ground, and the loud boom must have been heard for miles around. All three humans steadied themselves, but each of them had different expressions. Lila was terrified. She knew exactly what was happening and knew that she couldn't defend herself. Alea looked towards the school. It was not far away, and they could reach it if they ran. Callum was still facing the direction where the ball of light had come from with anger. Alea turned to look at Lila and sternly commanded, "Lila, listen to me. I will cover you if I need to. You need to run to the school as fast as you can. Do you hear me? Go," she yelled, and Lila instinctively bolted towards the school, her backpack bouncing with every stride. She heard the sound of Alea and Callum turning back into their robot forms and more blasts behind her. She didn't look back and ran as fast as she could. She heard the yelling of the two behind her and continued running. Her shoes felt like they were burning her feet, and her heart was pounding in her head. Her thoughts were blocked out with adrenaline as she ran to the school. She slid to a stop as she reached the staircase to the front doors. She ran into the school and hoped that the Sentiron warriors could defend themselves. Meanwhile, Saberclaw was violently firing plasma blasts near the woods. Her face was scrunched with determination as she aimed her blaster. About 10 Nextari soldiers had stepped out of the woods while firing at the Sentiron robots. They looked fierce and arrogant as they advanced closer to the robots. Saberclaw turned to Lockjaw in seconds and yelled to him, "What do we do?" She bolted towards the school, seeing that Lila had made it safely inside. She whipped around, seeing that she had put some distance between her and the Nextari. Lockjaw angrily grunted as he punched a Nextari hard enough to knock him out. He looked back up at Saberclaw. "I'm guessing we fight until they're all defeated." His words were calm, but he clearly wasn't. He put his hands up, blocking another Nextari attack. He showed his teeth as his double-bladed spear glowed dangerously. Lockjaw slashed at the Nextari, slicing his throat and almost instantly killing him. Lockjaw hated killing, but he didn't have a choice in this situation. It was him or the soldier. Saberclaw jumped into the air, using her wings to balance. Her body spun horizontally in the air, and she kicked a soldier with her metal boot. Its head folded inward from the force, and it fell to the ground dead. She didn't have any time to recover once she landed, so she sliced her dagger into another Nextari. After much violent fighting, there were only 2 soldiers left. Saberclaw knew that the bodies were clear evidence, so she acted to destroy them. She called to Lockjaw. "Can you cover me for a few minutes?" she asked with urgency as she kicked a soldier away from her. She glared at the soldier and was about to finish him off, but a blue-green plasma blast exploded onto him, and he went up into flames, then became a pile of ash in mere seconds. Saberclaw's head snapped to Lockjaw, and she saw his blaster smoking as he continued fighting the last Nextari soldier. He smirked at her and answered, "Sure, but don't take long, because I don't know how much longer I can fight this one on my own," he exclaimed without questioning her. He grabbed the soldier's shoulders and slammed its torso down on his knee armor. Lockjaw then punched the soldier while it was stunned, and it fell to the ground. However, it quickly recovered and tried to stand up again. Lockjaw pounced on it and held it down as it struggled. This one was twice as strong as the others, and that was probably why it was the last one standing out of the large group. He put his large metal arm on its neck and put all of his weight on it as he looked up at Saberclaw. He realized what she was doing and watched her burn all of the leftover bodies with her blaster. After a minute or so, she finished and turned around to help Lockjaw. She was too late, however, and the soldier threw Lockjaw off of it. Lockjaw's large body was launched through the air, and he braced himself for impact while he tried to steady himself. He grunted when he slammed into a few trees, breaking them and smashing onto the ground. He let out a pained sigh from the impact and slammed his overturned fist onto the ground, trying to lift himself up back onto his feet. However, he was struggling and felt surprisingly weak due to his battle injuries and the impact. Meanwhile, Saberclaw was struggling to fight the soldier on her own. It was almost as large as her and could match her in strength, even though she was literally made out of metal. She slashed her dagger at it, but it was more maneuverable than she expected. It dodged and thrusted its arm toward her torso, smacking her and knocking her to the side a little. She recovered quick enough and found herself holding it back, visibly struggling because she wasn't used to this much strength from a Nextari. Suddenly, she heard the screeching of rubber tires behind her and turned her head just enough to see what was there. Multiple vans had stopped in the middle of the road, and cameramen had stepped out, recording the same news reporter as the last encounter with the news. Saberclaw was half focused on the vans and half focused on the enemy currently trying to end her life. Apparently, this wasn't enough focus paid to the soldier, and Saberclaw felt her body being twisted to face the news vans. The man in the suit, the one being recorded, gasped and began violently talking into the microphone in his hand like his life depended on it when Saberclaw was forced to her knees. The green robot struggled forcefully, but the hold that the soldier was using on her was surprisingly hard to counter. She felt 6 fingers grip her wrist and felt her arm being grabbed by the Nextari. Saberclaw's eyes widened, and she cried out from the pain when the soldier ripped her arm away from her body. Her arm bent backward and sent a burning sensation through her arm and eventually her entire torso. With her other arm, she reached behind her head and blindly stabbed the being behind her. She heard a screech of pain from it and felt it release her. She instantly whipped around, her limp arm flapping beside her, and used telekinesis to hold the Nextari in place. She groaned in pain and clutched her shoulder as she angrily spoke to the frozen Nextari. "You should have never came to this place, Nextari." She ripped the dagger out of the soldier's shoulder and stabbed it into its heart. The Nextari was dead, and Saberclaw frowned with emotionless eyes as she burned its body. It seemed the pressure of the battle that had numbed the pain in her arm was now gone, so she fell to her knees again. She showed her teeth and continuously grumbled as she tried to cope. She felt a large, scared hand touch her face and saw Lockjaw's worried expression appear before her. He asked Saber, "Are you okay? What happened? What can I do to help? You're in pain. Should I call for Silver Spot?" His questions, comforting gestures, and obvious concern comforted Saberclaw. She looked up at him through pained, squinting eyes and answered, "I think I'm okay for now, but we have a bigger problem." She turned and nodded towards the stunned news people and the multicolored vans. Lockjaw leaned over a little from his crouched position and also noticed the men. He angrily sighed and commented, "Oh, great. The only thing that could make this situation worse." He stood up, towering over Saberclaw as she writhed in pain. He glared at the news reporter in the suit. The news reporter gasped and boldly turned his back to the very dangerous Sentiron warriors. He looked into the camera and said, "That's them, folks. 2 of the mysterious robots that have only been caught on camera but a few times. One of them seems to be injured, and the other sure isn't happy. This footage is being recorded by us at a very close range to the robots. Please continue watching this encounter live for more information and content." He smiled proudly, as if he had actually accomplished something. Lockjaw bared his teeth and clenched his jaw, but he looked back down at Saberclaw as she attempted to stand up. She successfully stood back on her feet as Lockjaw asked, "Do you think we can duck into the woods and get to the school? I don't think there is anything we can do about this situation, and we need to make sure Lila is safe." He took Saberclaw's injury into account, but she could stand, so it should be all right for now. She clutched her limp shoulder and inhaled through her teeth, making a pained, whistling sound as she answered, "Yeah, that might be her best bet. I think I can change into my other form." She glared at the news reporter, but began walking into the woods. She raised her uninjured arm and clenched her fist. This caused one of the vans to crunch into a ball of metal and tires. All of the news people gasped or screamed and turned to look at the crushed van as it beeped loudly and the squished headlights flickered. Saberclaw and Lockjaw took this opportunity to escape without being noticed. Meanwhile, the news reporter stepped in front of the camera again and said, "They have disappeared." The green robot appears to have some sort of telekinesis. This is a revolutionary discovery, and we will do our best to bring our loyal viewers more content containing these remarkable war machines. He sounded sickly excited. However, Saberclaw and Lockjaw were long gone, and weren't there to hear him. Please like, subscribe, and tell me if you like the story.